See this old rusted out propane tank here? Not doing nothing for no one. Let's build a forge out of it. So, first thing you're going to want to do is run this thing till it's empty. Then you're going to want to carefully cut off this handle, being really, really careful not to cut into the tank itself, because even though you've run it until it's empty, there could very well still be gases in there that could cause an explosion. So, just be careful. Proper PPE, respirator, safety glasses. So, next thing, this valve has to come off of here. When I looked around with how to do this the first time I built one of these, there wasn't really a good video on how to do it, so I'm just going to give you the short, sweet, and to the point. Ratchet strap it to something immovable. I'm using the post my post vise is anchored on. You can use a big pipe wrench, or if you got one of these, this is just a twisting wrench that I built for putting twists in really big stock, and this works good for me. So, this thing's really on there, so grab a hold of it, give it a good stiff turn. And once it's broken free, you should be able to just grab it with a pair of slip joint pliers like these and take it right off of there. If you hear any gas coming out, just wait and let it go. It took a couple of minutes, but it's finally stopped leaking, so you can just grab this thing by hand. Now wait until it stops making noise before you do that, because if there's any pressure in there at all and you try to pull this thing out of there, it's going to throw it at you. And you know, this is a heavy piece of brass, and it will really ruin your day if it comes flying at you. So, next thing you're going to do is slowly fill this thing with water. There's still gas in there that's still trying to come out, and since propane's heavier than air, it's all going to sink to the bottom. The water will drive all the gas out and make the tank safe to cut into. You can kind of see it's still throwing it back at me a little bit, but eventually it will fill up, so just take your time. Alright, we got our gas tank flushed out, ready to go. Next thing you're going to want to figure out is the measurements and internal volume of the completed forge. For example, I'm going to want a 7-inch opening on this. That's going to give me enough room for 2 inches of ceramic wool and about a 1/4 inch of castable over that, which is going to be more than enough. And that's going to leave me with an internal volume of about 500 cubic inches of forge space. This particular forge is going to have 2 burners, so that's more than enough. The rule of thumb is you want no more than 350 cubic inches per burner to reach forge welding heat. So, to draw it out, I'm just going to kind of cheat and use a discarded 6-inch buffing wheel and just kind of eyeball about 1/2 inch around it. What you do. Doesn't have to be perfect. I've got, 250 cubic inches to play with, so I'm not too worried if I'm slightly off. As long as it's relatively centered, you'll be okay. So, that's where we're going to be cutting. Alright, next thing we got to do is cut out this circle. I'm going to use a cutting torch for that. You could just as easily do it with a grinder and such, but I'm going to go ahead and warn you, I suck at using a cutting torch, so bear with me. So, that was me struggling to use a cutting torch, but we got holes on both sides. We'll take a grinder to those, clean them up, make them look nice, and we'll move on. So, we got our rough torch cut, it didn't pretty, but we're about to fix that up right now. It's kind of tricky to clamp this thing down because it's round, but the way I do it is I take a cinder block and this little railroad track anvil from my youth, and I just wedge that thing down like that. We got a good sharp 36 grit flap wheel in this grinder that should make short work of it. I'm only going to show you one side because doing the other one's the exact same thing. So let's get started on that. So, that's going to be our hole. It's actually about 6.5 inches. I decided to stop there because I think it's just going to look better. But, yeah. There's that, so I'll get the other side done and I'll bring it back. Alrighty, so the holes in the front and back are looking good. Next thing that's got to happen is all this paint and rust and crap's got to be stripped off. You can do it with a wire wheel or a flap disc. Alrighty, there we go. So, we got clean holes in the front and back. We got this thing stripped nice and clean. You really do want to strip off all the old paint if you plan on painting this. You're going to end up with a much nicer finished product. Anyway, that's going to do it for part 1 of this video. I'm going to break it into 2 separate videos just to keep them short. So, yeah. If you like what you saw, like and subscribe, and stick around for part 2.